I was thinking that today, since Purim is next week,
Yes.
we would take a break from the Parsha and discuss
Perfect, yeah.
a little bit of Purim, a little bit here and there. And there's lots of topics we can talk about. I'll start off and then we'll see how it goes. And maybe this will be a little more of a discussion than my typical class. So last week, there's a nice little segue from last week's topic where we were talking about Kiddush Hashem. Remember, I said that we were talking about how, the earrings, the gold earrings I found, and what Kiddush Hashem means is to sanctify Hashem's name. Kiddush, right, is sanctification, but it really means to show people that this is what God is, right? To reveal God in the world, basically. And we, as representatives of God's people, we have a unique opportunity to do that. So when we bring attention to God, we give glory to Him, basically, right? When we say this is God, in other words, when we behave well, obviously, the opposite, chas v'shalom, is called chilul Hashem, which is a desecration of His name, God forbid, and that's that happens when we hide Him, So the Purim story is all about the themes of hiddenness and revelation, right? Revealing, hiddenness and revealing. The name Megillah Esther, the term we use for the book of Esther, actually shows this dichotomy. Megillah is a word that means revealing, and Esther is a word name that means Megillah from the word galui, revealed.
Really? I didn't know that.
And Esther is the opposite. It means hester, hidden. So there's something about the Megillah that means that we're trying to reveal the hiddenness. Now we know that in the Megillah, Hashem's name is never mentioned once. It's one of two books in the Torah that never mentions Hashem's name. Why is this? Right? So this history in Jewish history, this era in Jewish history is really marked a big
Use
change.
toilet paper, Lisa, and just put it. Use toilet paper. I don't think it was Freddie. Well, why not?
So this era in Jewish history was really a very big change from what had come before. So before this era, like 70 years before the time of the story of Purim, was the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, the first
70
temple,
years
right?
before. Right?
Yeah, but somewhere around there. Yeah, 70 years before, a little bit less than that. And now the era of the temple was an era of miracles. It was a different way of, Hashem really related to us in a very open way, right? We had prophets, all the way up to Jeremiah, who would tell us God's word, and we reveal God's word. We had miracles in the temple. For example, the smoke on the altar would always rise straight up and wouldn't be blown by the wind, things like that. So the temple itself was a revelation of God's presence. That's where He was dwelling, as it were, right? However we understand that. And I said, earlier we'd had open miracles, the sea splitting, things like that. So, but once the temple was destroyed, we had no more miracles. We had no more prophets. All of that was done. And for the first time, the question now became, how do we see God in the world? He doesn't seem to be with us in the exile, right? The Jews were exiled to Babylonia. Where's God? There were no more prophets, there were no more miracles. So, and from then on, at this point, this is a new way of God relating to us in a very hidden way. We can't see Him, right? So if you look at the Megillah story, we see that this is a story where things seem to happen randomly, right? Coincidental. It just so happens that Achashverosh gets drunk at his party, and that leads to his killing Vashti, and that leads to Esther coming to the palace. It just so happens that Mordechai overhears Big Son and Seresh plotting to kill the king, and that deed is recorded in the king's book of deeds, and that later on, when the king is reading from this deed, he's reading about Mordechai saving him just when Haman happens to be in the hallway, right? And then the whole turn of events. So one by one, they look very coincidental and random. Of course, when you look back at the whole story, you see God's hand was in every single event. But the point is that none of them seemed like miracles. They just, things that that happen. In fact, Haman himself, right, when he's trying to figure out what day would be opportune to kill the Jews, to pick the day that this was going to be the day they slaughtered the Jewish people, he decided this by a lottery. A lottery is pur, where we get the name Purim from. Purim means lottery. So he was basically saying, in a way, the Jewish people have felt the divine, providential hand of God. No. They're not ruled by that anymore. Now they're going to be ruled by random whims of fate. So all of it has a randomness. So again, from the time of Purim on, we have to find God where he isn't really visible to us. And this was a new way of relating to him. So we have to make the effort to see God in the places where it's not obvious to us. In the laws of nature, we could look at nature and say it's a science of nature. This is how the earth works. Or we could say this is God behind nature, right? Now, the sin of the Jewish people, let's get back to the idea of Chil Hashem here. The sin of the rabbis say that what did the Jews do that was so bad in the Purim story that led to them being deserving of annihilation, right? Because they were going to be annihilated. That was the decree from on high. What did they do that was so bad? Does anyone know the answer?
Well, they celebrated all these feasts, and that were using things from the temple.
Exactly.
From the temple.
Right. So Achashverosh, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a tremendous feast. Right. What was he actually celebrating, by the way?
The destruction of the temple, and it wasn't getting built.
Right. More the second part. Right. He had known of the prophecy of Jeremiah. Yirmiyahu had said that after 70 years, the Jews would start to return and the Beis HaMikdash would be rebuilt. So, but he was counting it from the time of the original exiles, which was a little bit beforehand or after, rather than the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. But so Achashverosh's calculation was wrong. But so he came to what he thought was 70 years. He said, the Jews are not going anywhere. I'm good. I'm golden. So he was celebrating his official, the happiness of the fact that now he has dominion over the Jewish people. Yeah.
Why did he care about the Jews?
That's a good question. It's a good question. The Jewish people were known up until that time to be blessed. The hand of God was obvious. Like I said, there were tons of miracles during the time of the temple that people would be able to see. We talked about the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. We talked about the breastplate and how the letters lit up to show, right? So there were miracles involved. The time of the Jewish people in Israel before the destruction of the first temple was a golden era. It wasn't always perfect. There were kings that did evil and kings that did good, but they were a blessed nation. People knew it. People would come from all over the world to see the Jewish people, to talk to the kings of, King David and King Solomon, and to bring gifts, and it was a good time. They knew that the nations of the world knew somehow the Jewish people are blessed, are touched by the finger of God. And so it became, for some of these empires, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, it became a challenge to conquer them, right? Because every good king, every person who has these impulses to conquer, it says that Achashverosh's lands were 127 nations he had consolidated in his empire, and that they stretched from one end of the world to the other, from Mehodu v'ad Kush. Some rabbis say this means from India to Ethiopia. It was like a vast amount but it's never enough for a tyrant, right? So they always want to go out and conquer more and more and more. The Jewish people, were something else that they could, not just something else, not just another nation. This is a special nation. This is God's chosen people. To conquer them is a tremendous ego boost. So that would be one answer, why, And of course, the conquering of the Jewish people came along with all these beautiful vessels, the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, which he put on for his party, the vessel, the golden vessels, and the precious stones, and all of it. It was an ego boost to say, oh, look what I did, look what I have conquered the Jewish people. It's a major thing. So that's just one answer. So he was celebrating that, and he thought his victory over the Jews was complete. In fact, he had abstained from sitting on his throne. He was afraid to actually sit on his throne, which is why in the second pasuk of the Megillah, it says he sat on his throne. Only at this time, after what he thought was 70 years, he sat on his throne because he was now sure no harm was going to come to him. Okay, so he drags the vessels, the holy vessels out. He invited the Jewish people, right? He provided kosher food for them. The rabbis say the Jews did not transgress any mitzvos when they went to the party. There was nothing they did wrong. They had kosher food. No Jewish law was transgressed, but this is still the thing that the rabbis... Right. So they re-accepted the mitzvos that they had accepted originally at Sinai. So this is interesting because this is why Purim, if you think about the holiday of Purim, Yom Tov, it's all a physical holiday, right? So for example, what are the main mitzvahs of Purim? So we have Megillah, we read the Megillah, fine. Then we have four mitzvahs of Purim. We have the Megillah, and then we have giving tzedakah, but then the other two main mitzvos are the seuda and shalach manos. It's all about food, basically, right? So we don't have any other holiday on which one of the mitzvos is a meal. We always have a meal during Yom Tov. The Seder is different. That's true. Maybe I'm a little bit inaccurate when I say that, but yeah, so that's for sure true. But then the Mishloach manos is a very odd thing. We never have anywhere else in our year where we have to give food to friends. Nowhere. This is not tzedakah, because that's a separate mitzvah. We don't have any concept of this any other time to give food presents to friends. It's very odd, right? So the point is that we have to remember that, again, that this physical contains the spiritual. And it's our job to bring that out, to reveal that. So we take what seems to be a physical act, like eating, and we are putting the spiritual in it. That's the job of Purim, to remind us that Hashem is hidden in the details, right? God is in the details. So the goal is to make the physical spiritual. Now, this brings us to another very interesting idea of the connection between Purim and Yom Kippur. All right, so this is very interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard this before. Megillah and gifts to the poor.
Okay.
So there's a very, very interesting connection between Purim and Yom Kippur. Logically, it doesn't make any sense, but let's look at it for a minute. So the Rabbi Yitzchak Luria says that the biblical term for Yom Kippur is Yom HaKippurim, right? That's what it says in the Torah, Yom HaKippurim. Yom Kippur, Yom HaKippurim. You're already hearing it?
I never thought about that.
Okay. What does that mean, Yom HaKippurim? So you could read it, he says, as Yom, day, Ha, that is the, Ki, like Purim. A day that's like Purim. What does that mean? So on the surface, it seems a little bit ludicrous. What do you mean Yom Kippur is like? How is Yom Kippur like Purim? They're exact opposites. One day we eat, the other day we fast. One day is full of spiritualness, and the other day is full of physical. We spend one day in shul, the other day we spend eating. So it looks completely opposite. So the Talmud says that every Shabbos and Yom Tov has half and half, spiritual and physical, right? So for example, the spiritual part of Shabbos would be davening and learning Torah, and the physical is enjoying the good food, having the meal, resting, wearing beautiful clothes, right? Every yontif is like that. Yom Kippur and Purim are the exceptions to this rule, because Yom Kippur, both halves are spiritual. It's completely spiritual, And Purim is completely physical. We don't have like a set time to learn. I mean, we have to daven, but like it's not really a mitzvah to learn on Purim, right? So there's we would assume, we'd make the assumption that Purim, Yom Kippur, is the more important day, right? It's the holier day, right? Obviously, right? We spend all day in shul. We compare ourselves to angels. That's why we don't eat, by the way. Because we're trying to say that on this day, we're like angels. We don't have any need for all those physical things like food and drink and marital relations. We don't need all that. So we have this striving to make the soul dominant over our body on Yom Kippur. So we would obviously say Yom Kippur is a holier day. But here, Rabbi Luria seems to imply that there's of the two holidays, Yom Kippur is compared to Purim, meaning that Purim is primary, and Yom Kippur is like Purim, that Purim is the greater of the holiday. So how do we understand this? Okay, so it's true that Yom Kippur really represents the height of spirituality, for sure. We come to the shul, we have fear and awe of Hashem, right? We totally neglect the physical, we focus on the spiritual, we are reconnecting, we disdain the physical world, all that is fine. But it's a one-time event. Right? We can't sustain that level of spirituality every day. That's why it's one day of the year. It's a great thing to be able to do once a year. It's a taste of the divine, but we can't sustain that every day. It's like Matan Torah, right? We talked about how Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah, was on a high level. It was an amazing revelation, but it was a one-time thing, and there was no way the Jewish people could sustain that level. Purim represents the opposite side of the coin. We steep ourselves in the physical, right? Because we're all human. But our challenge is to be part of the physical world, but tap into the spiritual behind it, as we said. So that's, again, the lesson of Purim is that we have to identify the hidden miracles of the day. So we try to find the spiritual that's hiding in the physical world. And this way of serving God is not fear and awe. This is joy and love, right? Which can, by the way, lead to a higher level of connection, right? You would rather your children love and respect you rather than fear you and follow what you're saying only out of fear. And the mitzvos are kind of reflective of this. We have negative mitzvos and we have positive mitzvos. You could say the negative mitzvos are representing that awe and fear, and the positive mitzvos represent the love and the joy, like the Yomim Tovim and reaching out to Hashem. So the challenge, again, of Purim is to find the spirituality of the physical day. And this leads to a greater level. Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov writes, if one attains holiness through affliction, and another attains holiness through indulgence, right? So that would be the dichotomy of Yom Kippur and Purim. Who is the greater of the two? It may be said that the one who attains holiness through indulgence is the greater, for the attainment of holiness through indulgence requires an infinitely greater striving and effort, right? You have to work much harder to become holy in the course of your regular day, right? So it's a higher level you can get to. Now, connected to this idea is a very interesting idea about how Purim and our daily lives and seeing the spirituality in the physical actually can be a corrective. It's what we're supposed to do. And this goes back to something that happened in the Garden of Eden. Now, in the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Chava was in Gan Eden. So Hashem, we all know Hashem put them in the garden and said, one thing you can't do. They were commanded to not do one thing, right? Not to eat from the fruit of this particular tree. Most commentaries, though, they point out there was an additional command that we don't really talk about that much. The additional command said, quote, from all the trees in the garden, you shall eat, right? Meaning what? That there were all these other fruit trees and vegetable and wonderful produce, and Hashem was telling them, not only can you eat from them, but you must eat from them. It was a commandment to eat from them, right? So it was to enjoy. He wanted them to enjoy the delicacies of what the garden had to offer. Just this one not, but everyone else do it, right? So the Gemara says, actually, and it comments on this pasuk, that what was the sin of Adam and Chava? Not only that they ate from this tree, but that they didn't eat from the other ones. And the Gemara says, quote, in the future, we will all have to answer to God for all that our eyes saw and did not partake of. Meaning, God gives us a world full of physical delicacies, yummy food, and beautiful, wonderful naps on Shabbos, and sexual pleasures, and a world of nature that is for our enjoyment, and all these wonderful physical things. If we don't partake of them, then we are sinning, because he provided them for our pleasure and delight. But again, the challenge is, right, to partake of them, but in the proper context. In other words, when we enjoy ourselves physically, we have to put God into the mix. And again, this is a much bigger challenge than trying to connect God on Yom Kippur and Shul, right? So we have to enjoy. I'm actually smelling these flowers now. They have a wonderful smell. So my job is to not just say, wow, great smell. My job is to say, wow, Hashem created such great things for me to enjoy on Shabbos. I'm guessing they're left over from Shabbos. So what you're doing is you're infusing the physical, the plain physical nature with the spiritual. You're saying Hashem provided them for me to enjoy on Shabbos, to elevate my Shabbos even more, or to elevate the flowers even more, for me to appreciate God in the physical. That's the job. Are they causing you a little bit of a...
No.
Okay.
I was going to pick it up. I'll do it later. Because it will stay longer when you pick the...
Okay. Oh, yeah?
The yellow thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That's
stay
interesting.
longer. But then, because if that foul on the cloth, it's hard to clean, the yellow.
Right.
Very hard.
Yeah.
These
Yes.
things?
Like
Yes.
Yeah.
And when they bloom, you have to pick it up and then it stay longer.
Right. So again, the challenge is that we have to find God in the physical stuff. And when we do that, we elevate the physical acts. That's what Hashem wants from us. So that's the lesson of Purim. So that's eating. Let's talk a little bit about drinking. Drinking on Purim, right? It's a good topic because...
That's why when you go for Purim, you have a drink and something to eat.
There's actually a mitzvah. It is said that it's a mitzvah to get a little intoxicated.
Oh.
You didn't know that? Oh, I told you.
Well, I know that people get drunk, but I don't know why they get drunk.
So you don't know the difference between him and...
Right, exactly. Exactly. You're supposed to get a little bit, you're supposed to get intoxicated to the point that you confuse blessed is Mordechai with curse is Haman.
And why? That sounds so weird.
It's weird, right? Because, we are a people of the mind. The Torah abhors drunkenness, and there's several examples in the Torah of drunken people, and Noach gets drunk, Lot gets drunk. It leads to really bad stuff, right? It leads to incest with Lot. It leads to
So why?
right. So why?
You can drunk, but then you cannot get sick though.
So that's a good point. So the rabbis are careful, very specific to explain that if you know that you can't hold your liquor, or you know that you're going to act inappropriately, you cannot get drunk. You cannot go that far. You cannot, if you know you're going to be driving on the way home from your su'ud or whatever, you cannot. You're not supposed to do anything where you're going to, act and behave inappropriately. So
Guess what? People don't follow that.
Well, no, see,
They don't know their limit.
right. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, they
So
know it.
there was a rabbi who used to live here. He doesn't live here anymore, so I'm not going to name his name anyway. But he used to scare my kids on Purim because he would show up to the Torah Center and drunk. I'm talking. And he wasn't inappropriate at all. I mean, he didn't do anything inappropriate. The most inappropriate thing he did was talk to me. And I used to say every time on Purim, because he would come over to everybody, how you doing? He would come over to me, say hi, and he would make, whatever. But he was clearly, really happy. And I would joke to him every year, that Purim was the only time that he actually was willing to talk to me as a woman, which was, fine. But it was, it's a little bit off-putting for kids. And my kid, Sarah was a teenager, to see this staid, sober, serious rabbi. And he was, and he's acting in a very loose, uninhibited way. It was so strange.
So why are we supposed to confuse?
Right. Okay. So I'm going to get to that. So again, how can it be that the Torah is advocating getting a little drunk? It's really puzzling. So again, the idea is, by the way, my husband always likes to say that you can accomplish this level of unawareness by taking a nap. Sleeping is also, you take a nap and you don't know the difference between Haman and Mordechai. Okay, so let's talk a little about, so first let me give you some other reasons for why we're supposed to get drunk.
Okay.
He's over here, he's right here. Okay. So one thing is, some commentaries explain that the purpose of drinking is to remind us that the miracles happen because of intoxication. Originally, Achashverosh gets drunk at his party, and that leads to his killing Vashti, and that sets the whole story in motion. Okay. And then you also have the drinking party of Esther that leads to Haman being hanged. So that's a reminder that this was another reason is that, again, going back to the idea that Purim is a physical holiday, a holiday of physicality, it's reminding us that Purim was a holiday on which our physical bodies were in danger, as opposed to, let's say, Hanukkah. So the saving of the Jewish people at Hanukkah time was more of a spiritual nature. The spiritual, the spirit of the Jewish people was in danger on Hanukkah because they were at risk of assimilation. And that's a very different kind of danger. But on Purim, we were physically going to be killed. So again, going back to the idea of the theme of Purim being a very physical holiday, okay? We're talking about why we drink on Purim. That's all right. No, it's fine. No. It's fine. So another idea related to this is that, on Purim, we're supposed to feel complete joy, right? So what does this mean? The joy, we're supposed to feel a type of joy that only comes from a complete release of our inhibitions. So, when it comes to joking and happiness and laughter, why do we laugh at a joke? We laugh at a joke when there's something unexpected happens, right? So two things that juxtapose that are opposites, like, a toddler puts on daddy's shoes or mommy's shoes. It's funny because it's just unexpected. It's not, right, something that we don't expect. And the bigger the contrast between what happened and what we expect, the funnier it is, right? So here, the Jews went from being targets of annihilation on a specific day. They were going to be wiped out. And then in a 180-degree turn, they're victors and they're saved and they're killing their enemies. So the kind of joy that they had was like, it wasn't just relief. It was like joyful, like burst of mass celebration. And the Jewish people wanted this feeling to sort of carry over through the generations, that we should also have that ecstatic celebration. Right, so that's another element of why we're drinking. We just have to just get back to the sense of, wow, like amazing, that sort of thing.
That's a question.
Yeah.
You already said it.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's okay.
So, but if you drink so much, then I don't know if you touched upon.
Yeah, we talked about it in the
So
middle. No, that's okay.
Okay.
No, it's. I'll just repeat it. So we did say that you're not supposed to get to the point where you're just acting like a lunatic or inappropriate or going to be driving drunk or hurting yourself or other people or doing. If you know you can't hold your liquor, then you're not allowed to drink. But you have to get you're going to drink more than you usually do. My husband, for example, is a teetotaler. He never ever touches alcohol. He just doesn't like it. It's just, and even on Pesach, we have grape juice. On Purim, he has 1 cup of wine. Like, that's his indulgence, as it were. So you have to do something more than...
That you could like go to sleep or
Yes,
something like
right.
that.
That's what I said as well. Is that that's you can accomplish that level of not knowing the difference between Haman and Mordechai, not knowing the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman by having an app. He always puts that in the bulletin. Okay, so but here's another idea. Okay, about this idea of what does it mean to not know the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. So when we're in our right state of minds, right, when we're sober, as we said, the Jewish people is all about analysis and critical thinking and rational thinking, and we're all just human beings in general we're intellectual creatures. We see something and there's a reality that we create based on our experiences and based on our minds, and we know certain things to be true, right? So in our logical minds, Mordechai is blessed and Haman is cursed, right? That's logic, okay? But really, on God's level of logic, they're both the same, meaning it's all good ultimately, right? In other words, on Hashem's level of reality, everything that He does is good, right? We'd like to get to the state. We try to get to that level of reality, but really we're limited by the way we see things. In our worldview, Mordechai is blessed and Haman is cursed. But Haman is cursed only why? Because he's bad for us. In our view, he's bad. But on Hashem's reality, it's really all the same, because everything that comes from Hashem is good.
Because if it hadn't been for Haman, we wouldn't have really accepted the Torah.
Okay, yeah, you can, right, exactly. But it takes some going out of your logical mind to get to that point, right? So that's the goal of getting a little bit out of our rational minds. We drink. So what happens is we are able to sort of blur those lines of saying, I know in my logical worldview this is this and that is that. We are trying to get to that point where we are saying we're letting go of our own realities, Now, if we were on a higher level, we wouldn't need to get drunk. We would be able to be always in a state of no worry, no anxieties, right? But we're not. We're not on that level where it's in our heads all the time that Hashem has everything for the good. If we really, really internalize that, we'd be happy all the time. We'd be, but we need that liquor to get us to that happy place on this day. So that's what we do. So that's drinking. Yeah. Nice. It's nice, right? So that's all I had prepared. I have a couple of other things to say, but I wondered if there's anything else that has sparked any questions or any discussion you want to go to next.
So just a technical question.
Yeah, sure.
So, I did the Shalach Manos, but I still have to give 2, right?
Okay, so that's a good question.
Wait,
I actually
what do you mean, but 2?
So-
to people.
the law of Shalach Manos, the halacha says you have to give at least, the minimum is 1 gift to one person of 2 food items.
Right.
That's it.
Drink or
It could be anything.
That's 2. Okay.
2 different food
You
items.
do a different mitzvah, right?
Okay.
You mean a different bracha? Not necessary. Not necessary. Not necessary. Yeah. For a long time, people used to think that, but no. It could be, let's say, like I'm going to do like a container of sesame noodles and a couple of cookies. They're both mazonos. Doesn't matter.
Right.
The 2 different types of food. It could even be 2 different types of cakes.
So if it's 1 drink, 1 food,
That's fine.
you cannot. Oh,
That's
okay.
fine.
That's fine.
2 different kinds of foods.
Okay.
It could be a
You
drink.
wouldn't do 2 drinks, is what you
Right.
2 types of cookies.
Okay,
Whatever,
so
yeah.
So like I do like for sure, but this I have to give it again.
No. So this is Lisa's question.
It's the same.
Your question is, do you have to give an additional gift in addition to? No.
Yeah. Oh,
They're just your messenger.
Did someone say otherwise? Maybe I'm wrong about this.
No, somebody that doesn't live here.
No. So I think that a group. Wait, I actually printed out some information about
That
this.
makes sense.
So 1 second. May 2 or more people send jointly? Yes, but the package. Oh, okay. Here's the issue. The package should contain the correct quantity for each of the senders. So in other words, that's why that wouldn't be
Six
appropriate.
people went in, it's gotta be 12 items.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Package what?
So Lisa asked about Shalf Manos. Can she fulfill her obligation to do the mitzvah by sending the group HOC gift? And the answer would be no, because typically they have like 20 people giving
Right.
one thing,
Right.
but
Maybe
the
there's only 5 items.
5 items.
Maybe 40
Right.
for each person.
Yes,
Credit.
right.
It's so interesting, yeah.
Alright,
So,
so I just do 2 to cover. or
No,
one. One of 2
one
items
gift to
cover
one
a
person to cover
Why
and
do we think you have to give to 2 people? No, not 2
I'm
people.
not sure. One person.
One
And
person.
then you're also supposed to,
Do they have to be Jewish?
like a monetary, right?
Well, that's a charity.
That's-
Charity is, we talked about the 4 mitzvahs of Purim being charity, Shalf Manos, Megillah, and the Su'udah, the meal. What did you
Does
ask?
the gift have to be to a Jew?
What?
The food
Yeah.
item to a Jew?
Yes, it doesn't count if you're not. The purpose of that mitzvah is to, foster goodwill among Jewish people to one another. So, as the Megillah explains, so
So
that's.
are there any things about the meal that
Well, typically a meal, a Su'udas mitzvah, a meal.
festive, like a,
It should. Yeah, we say
like
that
higher quality than a
higher quality, special meat.
Oh, Mom, there is no other special meat.
You don't have to. You don't
Beyond
have
what
to
you
serve
have.
meat. You don't have to serve meat, but typically because it's more number one. Hmm?
Yeah.
Ooh, yum.
Okay. But it's
Put
not
that
going
up.
to be that high.
Anyway, so
Wait a minute, you said it has to be
No.
the best meat?
no. What I'm saying is.
like not
Say.
pizza, like it should be
Right.
What I'm saying is typically we have meat for a Seudah because meat is first of all considered a higher level food item. It's more expensive. It's special, right? You don't usually have a roast during the week. You wouldn't. You might have a stew, but a nice cut of meat is more expensive, and so and certainly in the olden days, I guess it was even more rare.
But that's minhag, that's not halal.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's minhag. I mean, we don't frown on minhag either. But yeah, if nobody likes meat at your family, why would you serve meat? You just have to serve things that people enjoy. Or if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you're not going to do meat, and that's fine. But it should be something a little bit special.
What about, do you have to hear the Megillah twice?
Yes.
Why?
The why I don't know. The what? Yes, I do know that you have to hear it twice. Once at night, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, but what about,
Gives me such
women are supposed to hear it twice, but
Yeah.
is the stringency not as strong for women as it is men?
No, it is. You have to. Women are obligated because they were part of the miracle. They were saved. They were subject to being saved, just like men. So they have to hear it twice. Yeah, it should hear it twice. By the way, the Torah Center does a second Megillah reading in the afternoon. I think it's going to be 4:30, something like that. Just so you know. I never go in the morning. I should. You should do it first thing, but
We're gonna eat at 5, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you have to hear it twice. Yeah.
Oh, I'll be so busy.
Do you have to hear it live twice?
What do you mean? As opposed to
Like,
on the
you can hear
computer?
a recorder, use a recording.
Ooh, that is a good question. Ooh,
The prophets,
I
Did you hear like a recording?
I don't think so. I think you need to hear it. It's a very good. Like, do you have to be there? Like, if you have to.
So, Mom,
Should we call the rabbi and see?
I will be sure the
I'm sure he
food
does.
is- So, what do you want me to make? I'll be here, but I'll be running late. I'll be here by 6 o'clock because Anna has the violin things on that Thursday. Yes. Well, yeah, exactly.
I have a feeling he's going to say no. You have to be there live. I have a question. You're on speakerphone. You ready?
But it's okay. The food will be
Megillah reading. Can you watch it live on the internet, or do you have to be in the same room?
You have to be in the same room.
Thought so. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
because Anna has to change her clothes.
Okay, there you go.
Also, because she has to have